Kansas State going to Texas. Texas favored by 4.5 points. This game's on Fox. For Texas, man, it feels like this is the one day at a time. Keep this thing going. Keep pushing this wagon uphill. Your quarterback's dinged up. He's not playing. Malik Murphy, you're in the ball game. Let's keep on going. Just one foot in front of the other. You peek over the horizon, you see the Big 12 title game, you see the college football playoff. You can't focus on that. You can't focus on what's ahead. You got to look right here because you got Kansas State coming to town, and they're a physical operation. Physical as all get out are the Power Cats. Now, Kansas State, they got one conference loss, and nobody's really talking about them. Just kind of flying under the radar. Typical Kansas State fashion. Oh, hey, don't worry about us. We're just scoring a lot of points and playing really good defense. Don't worry about us, though. We're just going to keep this thing rolling and kind of fly under the radar. And then all that, I want to make sure we say, if Kansas State ends up pulling off this win in Austin, I say pulling off, they're only 4.5-point dogs. So, this is a very winnable game if you're Kansas State. If they do beat Texas in Austin, they are no longer flying under the radar. They're very much so in that conversation when it comes to the Big 12 title. So what's going to determine this game? I prefaced it a little bit. The physicality of Kansas State offensively, they're going to do everything in their power to take it to Texas. Like I said it earlier in this live show, Kansas State has been the same football team from a philosophy standpoint last 10 years. We're going to pound the rock. We're going to beat your skull in with the football, running the football rather. Probably a lot of quarterback running there as well. And you're going to have to deal with it. Can you hang with us physically is what Kansas State's trying to ask Texas. Now, Kansas State, they're running the ball 42 times a game for a 5.3 yards per carry. Y'all, that's really good. That's going to get the job done on most days. Now, Texas played really well defensively last week against BYU, created a lot of turnovers. The whole hinge point within this is if you can't stop Kansas State running the football, they control the tempo of the football game. And if they control the tempo and they're able to get up on you, well, then you ask Malik Murphy in his second start to try and chase points against a pretty aggressive to a degree Kansas State kind of defense. Now, how aggressive are they going to be? We'll talk about that here in just a second. But if you can force Kansas State out of their comfort zone and be able to minimize that yards per carry number and force a lot of third and long, third and passing, well, then you ask Kansas State to do something they don't really want to do, which is throw the football. And Will Howard, I'm a Will Howard guy. I like the way that he plays the game. Avery Johnson, a guy that I think is going to be a star in college football here in the next couple of years. Kind of a two-quarterback system there. Will Howard is a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio right now. Translation, he will give you the football if you force him into passing situations consistently. 14 touchdowns, 7 picks. So keep an eye on that whole conversation because if you force them out of their comfort zone, and you're able to score points and you set the pace if you're Texas, I don't think this offense is built to chase you. Maybe it's built to match you, but if you get up 2 scores, 3 scores, they don't have that gear to say, all right, let's go back there, throw it around the yard, and find ourselves back in this football game. It's not really their forte, if you will. Now, something to watch. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Kansas State uses a lot of quarterback runs. They have since their offensive coordinator, Colin Klein, was the guy back there for them running the football. How does Texas address that design quarterback run game? Because we talk about it on here a fair amount. Anytime you have the quarterback running the football, you have more guys being blocked if you're on defense and less guys to go and tackle the quarterback. It's just a tricky thing to scheme for. It's a tricky thing to be able to fit in game. And if you don't do that consistently, or if you don't fit it well consistently, it could end up being a long day for you if you're Texas on defense. So keep an eye on that. That's going to be crucial when it comes to this game. Other thing we got to ask, on the defensive side of things for Kansas State, how do you address all these Texas weapons? Like they got more weapons than a military base, does the Texas offense. Adonai Mitchell, Jatavian Sanders, Xavier Worthy. Like we keep going down the list here. They got so many dudes that can hurt you when they throw the football. And Kansas State, like the thing that I looked at with them prepping for this breakdown was the Missouri game. Because Missouri, they have a number of dudes too that can hurt you. And to be real, y'all, like Missouri threw the ball all over the yard. I think they went for something like 350 through the air. Luther Burden had over 100 yards receiving. Like, that's beside the point I'm trying to make. But for Kansas State, they have a example on tape of having issues addressing multiple playmakers. Now, I think there's a couple of ways to try and play this if you're Kansas State against Malik Murphy. One, you try and give him the young quarterback treatment, which is you try and heat him up a little bit, even though Kansas State hasn't had a ton of success getting to the quarterback so much this year. Maybe this is the game. Maybe you try and be exotic. You try and rock and roll the safeties. You try and show cover 3 when it's really cover 2. Try and confuse him, get his eyes all out of whack, try and hurt his confidence. I think maybe that's one approach you try and make if you're the Kansas State defense. Because if you want to go man-to-man across the board, or you try and just play straight-up zone, I don't think you like your guys versus their guys, to be honest. So you have to affect the launch point, which is, of course, Malik Murphy. Now, something to watch for in this game, something Kansas State did a fair amount of and Missouri really kind of took advantage of against Kansas State, was Kansas State just said, we're going to keep it all in front of us. So Missouri, if you want to try and beat us deep, and spoiler alert, Missouri eventually did end up beating Kansas State deep a few times, so keep an eye on that if you're Texas. But early on, Kansas State said, we're going to try and keep it all in front of us. We're going to try and play a zone and just back off a little bit. And you take what you want underneath, but we're going to rally up to the football. If they want to play that way against Xavier Worthy, I don't think that's going to work out very well. If you want to give Xavier Worthy a crossing route underneath, he's going to turn 5 into 15. Or Adonai Mitchell, if you want to give Xavier Worthy extra attention, he'll do what he did last week. Catch a touchdown, maybe 2, probably hurt you over the middle. Jatavian Sanders, same deal. He's a force, and your safeties have to respect him. So, the way that this puts strain on a defense in the secondary is something to watch for, because that makes Malik Murphy's job just 10x easier whenever you're not able to adequately address all the weapons that they have. And I think that's kind of what this game comes down to. What do you ask of Malik Murphy if you're Texas? And the points within that, I would say, or if you're Texas, you want to help him out as much as possible, right? You want to run the football. You want to create third and manageable. You want to allow him to play with a lead. If you're the defense, you want to create turnovers, get extra possessions. Obviously, all that you had last week against BYU, you want to try and bring that into this game as well against a better Kansas State football team. Let's call a spade here. Now, for Kansas State, you want to have as many moments as possible where you put the game on Malik Murphy's shoulders. Kind of the inverse of what I just said a second ago with what Texas wants to do. Can you make him chase points? Can you create a lot of third and obvious passing situations where your defense can try and get after him, or you can kind of try and play back and sort of mess with this younger quarterback? That would be the way that Kansas State wants to approach this whole thing. Now, what you ask Malik Murphy to do comes down to the frequency of Kansas State isolating Malik Murphy and what he has to do in this football game, in Texas helping Malik Murphy and taking the pressure off of him. And then obviously, how does Malik Murphy respond in those situations where it is on his shoulders? Does he keep from having that big mistake, the pick 6, or the bad fumble against BYU, or those turnover situations you had last week? Can you minimize those, and can you elevate your play from even a week ago in your first start? I think that's going to be the ultimate key when it comes to who ends up winning this football game. So, to be real, you look at the way that Kansas State's playing the run, and as tough as I think Kansas State is as a defense, as bend and don't break that they have been at points this year, they're allowing 4 yards a carry. And Texas, I don't think it's going to be super tricky. I'm sure Steve Sarkisian will have some things dialed up pre-snap with Xavier Worthy running emotions and Adonai Mitchell working in the middle of the field and all that. But at the end of the day, they want to run right at you. And they've made that very, very clear multiple times, even with Quinn Ewers in the lineup. And so with Kansas State allowing 4 yards a carry and Texas being able to run the football in this game, in my mind, I like Texas to win. I think it could be a little bit of a grudge match at different points in this game, but still I like Texas to win. I like Texas to cover in Austin, 27-17. And if you're Texas, okay, another week down. Again, we just keep pushing this wagon uphill now. Quinn Ewers, waiting for you to get back in the lineup. When you get here, but we just got to take it one step at a time. Have everybody carry a little bit extra without 3 in the lineup, and we'll keep on taking steps forward. A win as well, I would say this, for Malik Murphy, you have to imagine that helps the confidence just a little bit. The more good things you put on tape, it's good for the opponents have to respect and address and have to prepare for. That's all true. But I think also to be able to look in the mirror and say, okay, I'm 2-0 as a starter. I think that builds the confidence. I think that does kind of allow a little bit of a, oh yeah, I can do this if you're Malik Murphy as the guy for Texas. So that'll be a big one in the Big 12. Kansas State, I'm sure, would love to spoil Texas's, last year in that conference before they say peace out to the SEC. But again, we got Texas winning because of what they do up front and how they run the football. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.